And meanwhile, in the nice warm shop, we're doing the last of the straightening up and arranging the props that we will need for this episode. So I'll put those two there, this one up here, and these two down here, and there. I think we are all set. Welcome back to the show, everybody. And yes, it's been a while. The feed's been very quiet. I've spent the last 9 days reworking much of the interior of the shop here, probably a good 2/3 of it, and we'll cover all of that at the tail end of this episode. But for the last month, I've just been taking parts off of tractors outside and throwing them in here, knowing that a day of reckoning was coming. We were going to have to try to make sense of the chaos that just accumulated, and it turns out it was 9 days of reckoning required, but I've really opened it up and changed some things around. But that's not the primary focus of this episode. The main topic, I was going to use it as an RD6 FAQ because I've been getting this question quite a bit lately. But it doesn't just pertain to RD6s, so I decided it was going to be best to make kind of a standalone episode out of it. So the topic is, where do I find the parts that are required for repair or all-out restoration of the antique Caterpillars? And it's getting tough out there, but I'll go to a couple of comments that I plucked from the many that I've received on this. Hanson Forge 942 says, I'm thinking about restoring an older 212 motor grader, 1949 to 1950 vintage. What are my options/availability for parts? I have a small home machine shop, so I make the smaller ones if need be. Thank you for any advice or suggestions. And then Off-Grid and Unorganized asks, how much parts availability is there for the old Cat machines? I am potentially interested in looking at a D4. It is locked up, guessing water. None of that bothers me as long as I am able to buy new cylinder liners to replace, as I presume they are pitted. Can you still easily get internal engine as well as chassis parts for the old machines? I know you seem to find stuff in your videos, but that doesn't always mean things are readily available, and this would be my first Caterpillar machine. Just two of quite a few like that I've received lately. This is where I have to walk a fine line between shooting straight with y'all and not scaring anybody off from the antique Caterpillar hobby. But it is a lot tougher to restore, to find everything you need to restore an antique Caterpillar than it is, say, a run-of-the-mill Farmall H or M or a John Deere A or B. For Caterpillars, there really are no engine kits. It's not easy. It's not a one-stop shop. You can't buy everything you need in one purchase. And more, you can't get everything you need from one place. You have to be quite the parts sleuth to locate what you need. And there is not as much available now as there was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, it already wasn't too great. But I'm not trying to scare you off. But if you're getting into what would be a first Caterpillar, just know that. Keep that in your back pocket. If you do, like the one commenter said, have a home machine shop and have the ability to make some of the smaller or simpler pieces, all the better. I find myself doing more and more of that all the time. Like, I have a lot of old episodes on rebuilding the D2, D4 sized starting engines and turning my own main bearings and things like that. And abilities like that are becoming more and more valuable as time goes on and as the existing parts supply continues to dwindle. So let's start with the Caterpillar dealers and talk about what pieces we can still get through them. If you're going to talk to the dealer, you need to have the parts manual for the machine that you own, and it needs to be the right serial number range for the machine that you own. Reason being, the majority of the Caterpillar dealers don't have access to this older reference material anymore. They've streamlined their stores. They've got rid of the old microfiche machines. Paper copies like this are considered clutter now. So outside of our hands, not a lot of people have this old information. So you can't just walk up to the parts counter and say, I need this and this and that for my D2. They don't have the resources to find those numbers, most likely. But if you can bring them the part numbers, even old numbers, they're very professional and they will do everything they can to plug those old numbers in their computer, see if they supersede into something new, tell you what's available, what's not, how much it is. So if you're working on your old D6, and we'll just use this page as an example, we've got some camshaft pieces here, and if you can say, yeah, I need this 1A 5647 washer and this 3B 4128 bearing, bring those numbers to them, they'll be able to help you out. But for them to find those numbers themselves, it's a pretty long shot these days. And what you can expect to still get from the Caterpillar dealers now are mostly what I would call soft parts, meaning gaskets, seals, O-rings, belts. They're pretty good about things like that. Some ball bearings and roller bearings, yes. Bushings, maybe. But when it comes to hard parts, like engine parts, that would be any kind of crankshaft bearings, mains or rods. Everything's getting pretty scarce. Pistons, forget about it. Cylinder liners, hit or miss. I haven't checked yet for the 5 3/4 bore availability. I know several years ago when I was working on the early Caterpillar D2, I was still able to buy new cylinder liners for that from Caterpillar, but they were starting to get a bit scarce. So, yeah, piston rings, they had some, not enough to outfit a complete piston. To tell you the truth, pistons and piston rings don't bother me that much because a few Google searches online, you can find plenty of people, plenty of places that can custom make new pistons, that can custom make new rings. It just takes money. Nobody ever said, I'm going to restore a Caterpillar because it's cheap. That's not a thing. The yellow iron definitely costs more per pound, I would say, to restore than just about anything else. Also, when you get into anything related to the tracks or the undercarriage, those are the highest wear items on Caterpillars, and they are about the hardest to find new, and they will certainly be the most expensive if you do manage to find anything new. When you get into the larger machines, D6 and up, I've found that undercarriage availability is a little bit better than anything D4 and smaller, because the larger machines tended to use the same track pitches for longer periods of time, so dimensionally more models used relatively the same stuff, or stuff that could be swapped from one earlier model to a later or vice versa. Whereas the smaller machines, they pretty much had a certain dimension, that's what they ran, and then as the smaller machines were phased out, that stuff just went extinct, because Caterpillars have always gotten bigger through history. They haven't went back the other direction. Also with the larger machines, they were more adaptable as undercarriage improvements were made, and possibly some of those undercarriage dimensions increased. They were made to be basically retrofitted back, these newer styles, back to the older machines. So older machines that might have a little bit lighter duty undercarriage can be updated to the more current, heavier duty stuff like that. There are a few aftermarket manufacturers for undercarriage. Burco used to be a big one. They were an Italian company. I have sourced some V-Track made by Piceni, I believe, which is also an Italian company. I've sourced some V-Track replacement chains for D2 and D3. Even that is hit or miss to find here in the States as being widely available, but the stuff is out there. D2, D4 track rollers, they're starting to get a little bit scarce. People have been retrofitting newer D3 sealed rollers onto D2s. It takes a little bit of doing, but they will fit. That's honestly why I rely on parts tractors quite heavily. I've stacked D6, RD6 type machines 3 deep out there already, and that's just to get me to the point to see if I have enough to proceed. It's not going to be everything that I'm going to need to end up with a 100% fully restored tractor. I'll still need more, but I have that rule of 3. It's always taken me at least 3 of any one model to build one really good one, because more and more, whatever used and salvaged parts we can score is pretty much all that we've got. And as long as we're talking about aftermarket parts suppliers, I want to mention Costex Tractor Parts, or CTP. And once again, I'll refer you over to the LAOL channel. Aaron and Greg working on their D4s. They have featured CTP parts in several of their episodes. And that's another good channel to follow, especially if you're into D4s, because Aaron is good about sharing where he locates a lot of his parts. Another parts supplier that Aaron has utilized on numerous occasions is Antique Crawler Parts and Restoration in Laramie, Wyoming. Here's a brief bit of contact info for them as well. And about a year ago, Aaron released a video very similar to what I'm doing right here on his channel, talking about where he finds his tractor parts. That was one of his viewer request episodes. So link to that in the description below here. I can back up what Aaron said on his channel. The internet is your friend. Google is your friend. eBay is your friend, especially for obsolete or obscure parts. And that ties back to what I opened with, having the manuals and the ability to locate, track down the part numbers of the items that you need. You can start plugging those in. It's amazing what you can find out there. Another website I highly recommend, tractorparts.com, and also connected to it, steeringclutch.com. They are subsidiaries of General Gear and Machine in Boise, Idaho. I have personally used those for sourcing parts and pieces for many of my projects. Highly recommend it. And on the tractorparts.com website, they have an excellent Caterpillar parts reference or interchange search function. You can take your part numbers, plug it into the search box, and it will tell you what that old number crosses to, both forwards and backwards, descriptions. That's been a very handy tool that I have used so that I can, take that old number and maybe cross it up to 2 or 3 other newer numbers. I can plug those in on my searches. Just broadens the whole field that way. Another good online source are the clubs. Take ACMOC, for example, or Antique Caterpillar Machinery Owners Club, which you do not have to be a Caterpillar owner to participate. That's just the name. But they have a website with a good discussion forum. You can bounce ideas as well as get technical support. There's also a good for sale wanted section. You can browse through, see what everyone has available, put on your own ads to buy or to sell. Also, check out Chapter 19 of ACMOC. They're based in Australia, but they've done a very good job by starting to reproduce some of the harder to find early gasoline Caterpillar parts and the like. And just trying to think of anything else I may have missed. I'm sure there are others, maybe some that I'm not aware of, or others that I forgot. Machinerytrader.com is another one. If you have your part numbers, plug them in. It's you can go global if you want, dealer and parts retailer website where it'll tell you wherever in the world that part number exists, who has them, how many they have in some cases. It's another valuable tool. But yeah, you do have to really piecemeal everything together, scrounge, and as I talked about with the commenter that had the hobby machine shop, home machine shop, make what you can't find. That's very increasingly necessary these days. So, and then other online sources like YouTube right here. I structure all the projects into playlists so it's easier to go back, search through, find the area of the machine that you're interested in, and then you can go straight to those episodes. And I try to share where I source parts, part numbers, seal numbers, interchanges, things like that, and show the things that I build. So that's about all I really wanted to say on this. All of the traditional, all of my favorite go-to new old stock places, in the last 5 years, they've pretty much all dried up, closed down, and it's just sign of the times. There are fewer and fewer of us out there that are working on these old things, and it's hard to keep places like that going. It's just an unfortunate reality. So you just have to scrounge. Like I said, be a parts sleuth and go find them wherever they happen to be. Okay, and now to the shop rearrange. And this little guy, Earl here, yeah, should we finish this up? Yeah, bud. Oh, I think Earl says let's go. So, yeah, the Reckoning, all the parts that I've been throwing in here, I did clean up around X231 a little bit. We've straightened everything up that was here. We need to get into a lot of this stuff and break it down yet, and basically get back down to this tractor. Otherwise, this end of the shop is where a lot of the work was done. So opened up this whole space right here because I think the big rear tub section from the RD6 is going to get parked right here. The goal is to get that cleaned up enough to inspect it to tell if it's good, and then finish disassembling that block, liners out, studs out, clean that up, make sure that's good. If we can get both of those things done on the RD6 this year yet, by the end of the month, I think we'll call that good, and we'll start looking at X231 a bit because I really need that spot. So, all right, nice open space here. Went through the top of my old Ford garage toolbox and got that squared away. We cleaned off this bench here, as well as cleaned all the drawers out and really went through this. I've got my NPR set up here, real handy to have. Some of Senior's machinist taps and kits there. Now, this is a new toolbox that Senior picked up from the Menards store. It's a Master Force brand. It's not super duper fancy, but honestly, I'm pretty impressed with it. This is sitting where the smaller milling machine with that countertop type table that we built for it used to be. So Bridgeport here is our main guy now. So we ripped that milling machine out with its countertop table and put this toolbox in its place. Senior put his other little vintage wooden machinist toolbox right here, and he's got, well, he's been putting some things in the drawers. Of course, on camera, every drawer I open is empty. I know he puts, yeah, there we are, some slotting stuff. I think he's just started filling it. Yep. There's some lapping tools. There's a few more. All right, so he's got some more space to fill in there. A lot of this is machinist-related stuff, really, in this toolbox. Here's our clamping kits and some end mills and some drill bit selections. Really, I've been impressed with this Master Force box so far. I'd say it's on par with my old Snap-on. It might even be a little bit heavier duty still, but we arranged it so a lot of our micrometer stuff is right there. And then over here, all of our commonly used tap and die sets and some commonly used drilling items. Below that is a drawer that is all milling machine related stuff. We've got a lot of the clamps and bolts and mills and cutters and collets, just all kinds of stuff. Blocks, some more bits, some hold downs, some deburring tools. Below that is kind of a mixed bag drawer. We've got some boring head kits, some measuring tools, some round stock, just some long things, you know, rules, steel rules. That's one that we need to fill yet. That's the only open drawer. This one is more milling machine stuff, vices, our tramming rotor, some turntables, some more collets, a few more bits. Down here are all of our heavy sockets, 3/4 drive and 1 inch. And below here, we have a lot of our sleeve pullers, cam bearing installers. There's my spanner wrench. There's some chain tools of Seniors. Right here are a lot of the, we'll say tool posts, tool holders, everything, faceplate, everything that has to do with the little South Bend 9-inch, which we moved to this spot as well. We blew out that shelf that used to be there, set of shelves, moved this against the wall. So that's what this drawer is all about. This is punches, chisels, drivers. This is all reamers. This one is all things dial indicator related. Lots of measuring tools in there. This one, we're getting into some milling machine blocks, some more vices, some indexers. And then the last bank over here. This is like an electrical drawer. Okay, he's got a lot of cordless tool stuff in there. And this is, I believe that's a Brown and Sharp indexer, some other collets and things. Just handy stuff like that. And this has power strips on it with USB and USB-C. Yeah, little surge protector built into there. So handy setup. So we're right in close proximity to the Bridgeport with all that stuff. And the little South Bend 9, moved it over here. I put this aluminum backsplash there with this little shelf. We've got a lot of our chucks and centers and bits, inserts, Aloris tool post tool post holders, oil cans, just an assortment of other things there. Hung my twist drill and decimal equivalents sign up. And really, we had some scuffs in the wall from that old bookshelf, so they covered that nicely. And this was the other thing I put on the wall. This is an old Gillette dual tire matching stick. It's basically a measuring device for the outer diameter of tires, so you can match dual tires to similarly shaped ones. But I put this here because it hides that scar on the wall from the old bookshelf. Just like it was made for it. We've got plenty of wall space now we can fill up. I have a lot of things that still have to be hung on the walls. We completely cleaned all of this shelf bank out. Sorted through, redid, reorganized, eliminated a lot of stuff. We still have a little bit of space left there, and got my old Caterpillar box up on top just because I like looking at it. And this was another bench that was kind of a disaster area. I cleaned the whole top off. This is kind of some X231 related stuff here. Found a place for my Caterpillar thermometer, kind of handy to have on the wall. And some of the RD6 pieces, a new liner I've got, the old broken piston and bent rod. I added this shelf down here with the help of Mr. Earl. Yeah, you're a good helper, aren't you? Yeah, good kitty. Added that shelf right there. So I have a lot of my hydraulic puller related stuff on that shelf. Sorted and reorganized everything that's down there. And then just kind of cleaned up around the press. Cleaned and straightened this bench. And where the little red China lathe used to sit on this one, I turned into my greasy, dirty parts teardown bench, just because this top is so easily cleaned and I don't have to use as much cardboard when I take dirty things apart. I can just go right on the bench and get everything cleaned right up. So kind of rework some of this down here. That's a lot of X231 stuff that we'll be into immediately when we start working back on old Christine right there. And yeah, the old orange sweatshirt, it ended up finding its way to the rag pile. Just couldn't be saved. What can I say? And this little tool cart, I decided to put all of our grinders there. The bottom is just kind of a whatever shelf, but then beneath this top piece is now the solvent pan area. So I can just cover all of that up with a tabletop type piece like this, and it's not out where it can make messes anymore, and it's contained and it's stored a lot better. Plus you still have car accidents here in the shop. There we go. You still have a bit of a work surface on top. So did we forget anything? I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. So I think that's all we've got for this episode. That's my rundown of where and how I find my parts, and also a recap of what's been keeping me busy for the last 9 days. I have not been outside to pull dead axles on that final tub yet. Winter's really set on hard here. It's either been snowing or it's been profoundly cold. And the couple nicer days we had, you're shameless. The couple nicer days we had, I was in here just working on cleaning the shop. So the goal is to get that RD6 tub pulled in here, and then we can just really go to town on cleaning and all that other stuff. So, all right, for me and for Earl, I think it's some attention time. Yeah, all right. I think we're signing off. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and next one we'll either be tackling some greasy parts or we'll be towing a tub in here. It'll be one of the two. So be on the lookout for that. Hope to see you all back next time, everybody.